to news today that proves how little facts count in politics. It's disgusting how easily your money slips through the fingers of our politicians. Like this story today in the Daily Telegraph. It should be a national scandal, really. Nearly $2 billion gone, stolen. More than 100 people convicted for a rort that many were taught on TikTok, claiming fake expenses and business activity statements, often for fake companies, claiming fake GST refunds. Now this guy, Christopher Andre Jans, a gambler, he took 2.4 million of our money. This woman, Lily McKenzie, got 147,000. This bloke, Joshua Merritt, $395,000. And we're told that of the $2 billion stolen, less than 1/10 has been recovered. And this is why you pay your taxes. Now, I wonder how we managed to breed so many people with no shame at all about stealing from the rest of us. But to another example of your money not just being thrown away, but thrown away on something that actually puts children in danger. The West Australian Premier, Roger Cook, was today the latest Premier to say, I'm going to give money to my state's stolen generations. I'm going to give every one of them $85,000. He claimed a third of Aboriginal children in the past were stolen from their parents, and that past was shameful. So this is the stolen generations. And I say to Premier Cook, really? Really? Roger, I'm asking you, what stolen generations? Who exactly are you giving this taxpayer money? The stolen generations actually means children stolen from their parents just because they were Aboriginal. Not because they were in danger, but just to destroy the Aboriginal race. Now, I've covered this story for decades and right from the start saw a problem with it. The facts. Now, that phrase, stolen generations, was invented by Professor Peter Reid more than 40 years ago. And he singled out two examples of these stolen generations. Lowitja O'Donoghue, who became a top public servant and patron of the Sorry Day Committee, and Charles Perkins, who became the first Aborigine to head a Commonwealth Government department. Not a man easy to call a victim. Thing is, neither O'Donoghue nor Perkins were actually stolen. O'Donoghue later told me her white father had cruelly dumped her with missionaries. And Perkins admitted on 3AW radio he wasn't stolen either. His mother had actually asked the missionary, Percy Smith, to take and educate her very talented son. Now, every time I've checked the stories of people claiming they were stolen, it's been much the same. Like in the first big federal test case for compensation for the stolen generations up in the Northern Territory for Peter Gunner and Lorna Kabilo. Well, the judge turned them down. Turned out Gunner had actually been sent by his mother to school at Alice Springs. Kabilo had been just 8 when she was rescued from a bush camp because her white father had vanished, her mother and grandmother had died, and the aunt who was supposedly looking after her often worked at a station more than 60 kilometres away. Now, almost every state has since had courts hear claims for compensation. Not one judge has found children were stolen just for being Aboriginal. In Victoria, an Aboriginal-led government inquiry even concluded there had never been a government policy there just to remove Aboriginal children. Let's get back to Western Australia, where Roger Cook claims 1/3 of Aboriginal children were stolen and must get $85,000. There was a court case there too. A couple who claimed their children were stolen in the 1950s and 60s, I think 70s too, and not because they were in danger or need, but to assimilate them into white society. This case was in 2013. And the judge, Justice Janine Pritchard, ruled that no, the references to assimilation in the evidence are not sufficient to support a finding on the balance of probabilities that there was then, within the Department of Native Welfare or Child Welfare Department, the pursuit of a policy of assimilation of Aboriginal people into white Australian society through the wardship of Aboriginal children. So, in short, no policy to steal Aboriginal children just to assimilate them. Yet Western Australia's Premier today insists 1/3 of Aboriginal children were stolen and he's going to give them money. Doesn't he care for the facts? As it happens, we today remove many more Aboriginal children than we did before in the Stolen Generations Day. Politicians complain it's too many, 10 times the rate of non-Aboriginal children taken from the family, but there is a reason for that. Aboriginal children are also at much more risk of abuse or neglect. And that's why the Stolen Generations story, or myth as I call it, is so dangerous. Because even though we do remove many Aboriginal children for their safety, a number of Aboriginal children are not removed for fear of repeating this Stolen Generations, and a number have then died. I've written about them. They include this poor girl, for several years in the care of her aunt, left where she was, crying, only to die in the dirt of the yard of her home, crawling with ants, with 1.5 litres of pus in her leg. She was just 12 years old. So Roger Cook, flinging more money at this Stolen Generations that no judge can find, may feel is doing the noble thing in this Reconciliation Week, and I'm sure he means the best. But he is feeding a deadly myth, deadly for Aboriginal children, but also terrible for all children, because it's teaching them a contempt for the supposedly genocidal Australia that our country does not deserve and cannot afford.